Getting ready to start. If everybody will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing afterwards. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recently, we lost 3 town residents that had served the town well. Their names are Mary Nagel Franey, William R. Hamilton, and Thomas McIsaac. Could we please have a moment of silence? Thank you. I'll just briefly explain those 3 people whose names I just mentioned. Mary Nagel Franey, 93 years old, was a homemaker and cafeteria manager for the Abington Public Schools. She was active in St. Vincent de Paul and Meals on Wheels. William Hamilton passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family after a long illness, a lifelong Abington resident, Abington High School, chairman of the Permanent Building Committee. That's not listed here, but he was actually a member of the Finance Committee when myself and I think Andy were on the committee. Tom McIsaac, lifelong resident of Abington, a member of the Board of Health that I had the opportunity to serve with him, and a assistant football coach for Abington High School. They will all be missed. We just have a couple of public announcements. I think Kevin has something.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make notice that on Friday, August 23rd, at the Senior Citizen Center, we'll have the annual Senior Citizen Cookout from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a change in venue. As a lot of you may remember, we had it at the old VFW before. We're moving it to the Abington Senior Center, and as in the past, any local official, department head that is interested and available, I'd welcome you to come down and help us serve the seniors. So we're all ready to go. Just again, it's Friday, August 23rd at the Abington Senior Center, 11 to 1.
I know you and Tom can go to that, but what, do you need Abby to go?
Sure.
Okay, just want to make sure. I'm quite old enough for that. We have a notice from the Abington Police Department that went out, I guess I found it on Facebook, but this weekend there were a lot of break-ins on cars, and most of the cars were actually not locked. As many as 12 break-ins in a couple areas of town. So the police just want to remind everyone to be vigilant and lock your doors and remove any valuables. So, public announcements. We have Deborah DeFranco, who's going to talk about a day in the past. Deborah, wherever you want to go. You want to be on the microphone? So good.
You're now going to partake in the comic stylings of Android and Android.
We would like to, for your attention, I'd like to bring up that we give our generous thanks to Robin Fernald and the Abington Historical Commission. We also give thanks to our Recreation Director, Peter Serino, and we also give thanks to Bill Davis for his photography, for his cinematic talents that he will be taking
He'll be taking part in his Abington Cable. Without him, we wouldn't be seeing much of anything. We'd like to invite everybody to join us for a spectacular time, a day in the past at a summer picnic.
This event will take place August 10th, 2013 at Allen Grove Park in Park Avenue in Abington, Massachusetts, for any of you who have forgotten where you pay your land taxes to. This event will take the time of 11:15 a.m. It will end at 3 p.m. And sorry to announce there'll be no rain date if this is supposed to happen.
Because if it rains, just think, it contributes to soggy sandwiches, potato salad, soup, and then every single activity that we have planned becomes water sports. So in the event of heavy showers, it will be canceled, and definitely hurricane conditions, stay home, batten down the hatches.
We bring this up because 19th century picnics were important in social events.
Yes, they were very important. And you're going to be amused with historical reenactors. We'll have ladies, gentlemen,
including Senator Henry Wilson,
as well as some soldiers, too, from the American Civil War from the historical group. the U.S. Sanitary Commission Boston Branch. And if you want to know what the U.S. Sanitary Commission is about, you're going to have to show up, ask us. We'll be more than happy to tell you.
Give us a visit.
And we're going to be picnicking in true 19th century style, which won't be exactly with disposable picnic items. We will actually have proper tables, tablecloths, and we bring our dishes and china. So it's definitely a different time. We'll also be eating period foods.
Very expensive nowadays. Well, we ask everyone, including people who show up to the event, to bring your own picnic lunch and join us.
Yes, and come and play games with us. We're going to have graces for the young ladies. We'll be doing ring toss, as well as maybe some other little things provided on how much space that we're going to have to run the games, as well as, don't forget, swimming.
We also ask you to please bring your own voice for a sing-along with all the picnic participants like us.
We're going to try to sing a lot of patriotic Northern tunes, although I will have to admit that the Southerners did have better songs.
I'll admit that too.
Yes. They had Dixie, they had a lot of different songs.
That was Lincoln's favorite.
Yes, it was. Oh, Blue Tail Fly was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what we will be doing is having a short talk on swimming attire fashions, as well as how Victorians stayed cool in the summer. This is the advent before air conditioning. So if you want to know if I'm hot while I'm wearing this, I'll tell you exactly how we did keep cool.
And we also would like to ask you to please join us in the dip of a pool, and do not worry, the lifeguard will be on duty, unless if the rain happens, of course.
Right. Anyone who's planning on swimming, if you do not already have a season pass for the pool and you'd like to come just for the day, the passes are $5 for a resident of Abington and $8 for non-residents. We definitely welcome people from the outskirts, so if you have friends and family from other towns who you think like to partake and enjoy the day with us, they can pay an $8 fee. All of the swim passes will be available over at the snack shack, and they can be purchased right there on site.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, other than that, we do hope that everybody will find some time in their busy schedule to take a little trip in the past. It requires no batteries, no quarters, no electricity, and we hope to see you there.
Very good.
Thank you, Debbie. It's going to be a tough act to follow. I'd like to bring to the microphone Robert Pratt, who is our Interim Director of Veteran Services. Do you need a straight man too, or are you all set?
Usually when I speak in public, I don't write anything down, but I wrote something down this time because I thought it was more special than ever. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen to allowing me the time to come here to honor Billy V. Billy V, we can never pronounce his last name, that's what we call him, Billy V. For the last 20 years or so, he's been unselfishly taking his time to go down to the veterans lots and the GAR mound and keeping everything the way it's supposed to be in the cemetery. He doesn't ask for any help. The only thing he asks for is when he needs supplies for fertilizer and weed killer and something extra to kill the ants under the stones, he calls the veterans agent. So that's about the only time he asks for any money. Other than that, he does everything himself up until a few years ago. He's enlisted several people, including me, to help him. This last year was awful. Spreading mulch in 90% humidity was not good. When I told him he had to be here tonight, I said, Bill, you got to be here to the Board of Selectmen meeting. We're giving you an award. He said, what do you mean giving me an award? I didn't earn anything. I said, well, that's not. As you can see, all these people here, they know you earned it, and that's why they're here. He thought it was for someone else, and he still today, when he came in here, he thought it was for someone else until he read the agenda. And this is the kind of guy that Billy V is. He doesn't. He's very humble. He doesn't take recognition very well. He doesn't take recognition very well. So I want to call them up here and give them something of appreciation. I want to let everyone know that Ginny Ledoux wrote the words because I couldn't come up with anything. It says here, with gratitude and appreciation, we recognize William Billy V. Vignani. That's what we call him, Billy V. For his many years of devoted service as keeper of the Veterans Lot at Mount Vernon Cemetery, Town of Abington Memorial Day Committee, May 27, 2013.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's tough taking an award for something you had so much fun doing. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate this very much.
Thank you. The last time I saw Billy step up to a microphone, he belted out a Johnny Cash tune, so we appreciate you for not doing that, Billy.
Don't encourage it.
Next up, we have our fire chief, Chief John Nuttall. If Chief would like to come up, and he has quite a few things he wants to take care of, and maybe he can start out by telling us a little bit about some of the activities they've had the last week or two. It's been a busy, busy time.
Thank you. I think we're going to be taking over the room for a moment, if you don't mind. We have quite the crowd here tonight, because we have a few things we want to talk about. The reason the fire department is here tonight in fairly large numbers, as well as in dress uniform, because it's difficult sometimes to get these members cleaned up as much as they are, especially following the incidents we've had recently. But we're here to honor 4 people tonight, members of both the Abington Fire Department, new members, as well as an Abington resident that was very instrumental in helping to prevent a serious fire from becoming a very devastating fire. I did send the board a letter on this, and I'd like to have a commendation. If Derek, you want to, Dylan, you want to come back up? Apologize. This is Dylan Regan. He is an Abington resident. He's 10 years old. You want to stand right over here so that I can see you? The podium's going to be, there you go. And on July 28th, July 18th, we had a fire at number 2 Forsyth Drive. Forsyth Drive is the multifamily apartment buildings right up the street from Town Hall here, right off of Route 18. Dylan is a resident at one of the units at Forsyth Drive, and we had a fire that afternoon, or they had a fire, I should say. Dylan was in the swimming pool at the development, and he noticed, looking out the window from the pool, that there was a fairly serious fire occurring at the building right next door to him. And Dylan's 10 years old, and I applaud him because instead of sitting there watching the fire like some adults would have done, wondering where the fire department is, he actually pointed out, I think his grandmother was there at the time, as well as the building management, there's a serious fire, somebody called 911, he kind of directed them. We, almost at the same time, were receiving an automatic fire alarm from that location. So we were getting ready to respond to this location anyway. However, by Dylan spotting the fire, and now we had a 911 verbal confirmation that there was actually a fire, this is not just an alarm coming in, that changes our response tactics. That initiated us to send a fire engine, in this case from the town of Whitman, because they were closest, directly to the scene before we even got there. That's a new mutual aid policy we just put into effect. That would not have occurred had Dylan not found that fire and somebody called to confirm that they're actually seeing a fire. By doing that, by having that extra engine there, as well as the members of the Abington Fire Department that responded, we were able to keep a very serious fire that occurred in the outside second floor balcony area of a 3-story, 12-unit residential complex from getting into the roof area. Because had that occurred, in all likelihood, we probably would have lost the entire building for a number of reasons we won't get into now, but it's just due to the building construction. So because of that, we were able to get there quick, get the right resources there on time. So Dylan, we have a couple of things here for you. First is just a commendation you can hang on your wall. It just says the Abington Fire Department Fire Safety Certificate to certify that Dylan Regan helped to stop a building fire at number 2 Forsyth Drive by notifying others to call 911 on July 18th, 2013. That's yours. Thank you very much. This is just another little something you can look at afterwards. It's also yours from the Abington Fire Department, and as well as the management at Havana in Abington, the management company, want to thank you because you saved millions of dollars worth of damage that could have occurred to everybody in that building. So we want to thank you.
Good job.
Good job, buddy.
The other reason we're here, and I'll try not to take up too much time, I know you have a busy agenda, is to have what we call a badge pinning ceremony for our 3 newest members of the Abington Fire Department. These 3 members are replacing 3 members that retired earlier this year, and it's quite a process to become a firefighter, especially a firefighter paramedic. Because of that length of the process through civil service, the process of trying to get them through the Massachusetts Fire Academy, as well as with the 3 retirements, that created a void within our department that now we're low on personnel that we have to try to fill those vacancies. So what we have done is we've hired these 3 individuals, and they're actually actively working in your community now prior to going to the Mass Fire Academy. There's very careful ways we're able to do this because we don't want to put either the new firefighters, the current firefighters, or certainly the public in any danger by sending some personnel that are not fully trained into an environment where they don't belong. So the 3 individuals that we have hired each have certain strengths that we're able to use, put them on currently while they wait to go to the Fire Academy. The first one is Derek Haimati. Just a quick brief on Derek. Derek was a firefighter paramedic for the Lakeville Fire Department, and he had just enough experience that we were comfortable putting him actually on a shift. He has somewhat limited abilities. However, the last couple of weeks we've had some major fires here in town. Coincidentally, Derek was the pump operator for 2 of those fires, which means he's running the fire pump on the first engine that's actually attacking the fire. And it's not just one hose coming out. He was actually responsible for multiple hoses, multiple lines coming in and out of those engines when he was doing it. And one of the reasons we saved, I think, number 2 Forsyth Drive, as well as a fire we had Saturday up on Bedford Street, Derek was the pump operator, and he's taken the limited training we've given him specifically to do that task, and he excelled at that. And I want to thank you for that. Derek is a corporal in the 82nd Airborne in the United States Army. Again, he has enough firefighting knowledge to be assigned to a work group until he attends the Mass Fire Academy in September. And he is going to be pinned by his badge by his dad. Is Jim here? Your dad, Jim? Get this out for you. Probably should have showed you how to do that first. Thank you very much. Some of us are not as good as jewelry as others. Congratulations, Jim. The next 2, and these were in no particular order. Michael Kologe. Mike, if you want to come up. Mike is an Abington resident. He has been in the emergency medical service for 14 years, most, I think, with Fallon Ambulance. He's been a paramedic for 7 years, I believe. And he is assigned 42 hours a week to Rescue 2, which is our 2nd ambulance. So Mike and Kate, which you'll meet momentarily, we're using them as their paramedic skills only. Very limited firefighting skills. They did help us at a couple fires getting the hydrant ready, but they're not going into any buildings yet until they've had the training. However, they're both licensed paramedics by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we're using those skills, hoping even to break even in the cost of paying their salaries until they go to the academy by running that second ambulance, when the second ambulance is operational. Michael is going to be pinned by his dad, Stephen. Last but certainly not least is firefighter Catherine Klein. Catherine's also a licensed paramedic. Kate was in the military police in the United States Army serving in Iraq. She is also assigned 42 hours a week currently to Rescue 2 with Mike until she goes to the fire academy, and hopefully Mike and Kate are going to go to the academy in November. We're trying to bump that date up if we can, but in the meantime, they're working on Rescue 2 in your community. They have been for a couple of weeks. And Kate is going to be pinned by her son, Tyler. We do have paramedics standing by. And we also asked Leanne Adams, I think she's out in the, if she's going to swear them in tonight in front of everybody. They'll take the oath for Abington.
Of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Charter bylaws. And I will faithfully.
And I will faithfully.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Of the office to which I have been appointed.
The office to which I have been appointed. Thank you.
Congratulations. 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 Congratulations.
Take a short break, guys.
Just one last thing, and then we're done, if you don't mind. Well, this is public announcements, if you don't mind. Could I have firefighter Kroll to come on up? Firefighter Kroll, this is kind of his, not assignment, this is his doing, but just a public announcement that the Abington Firefighters Local 208 is also going to be sponsoring another firefighters muster. A little bit different this year. Last year was the first year in many years that we've done it. And this is going to be sponsored and run by the Abington Firefighters Local 208. This will be Sunday, August 18th at 11 o'clock on Memorial Field behind the Frollo this time. I believe the Abington Lions Club is going to have a concession stand there. And we've invited numerous area fire departments to attend. So Matt's in charge of that. I just want to thank you. If you see his face around there, he'll be putting up the posters around town, I think, for that. So thank you, Matt, for doing that.
Chief, what time is that again?
11 a.m.
11 o'clock.
Thank you.
We'll take a short little break so you guys can, unless you want to stick around for the fun part of the meeting. A 6:30 appointment, we have a change of hours from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Current hours, Monday through Sunday. The request to go to 24 hours, Monday through Sunday, Abington Citgo, 115 Brockton Ave. Do we have the parties from Abington Citgo? I believe it was Mr. I don't have it.
Durrani.
Mr. Durrani. Okay, representing Mr. Durrani, we have
Attorney George Whiting, 100 Colonel Hunt Drive. Good evening.
Good evening, George.
It was a little less than a year ago that we first appeared before the board, and there were a number of complaints that had been lodged against Abington Citgo, Mr. Durrani, and I guess the hours that were kept, some allegations of the car wash opening early, not closing on time, perhaps excess noise, bright lights, you name it, and Mr. Durrani has taken to heart the various objections that were put forth by one particular of his neighbors, and he has also taken to heart and heeded well the warnings, if you will, for lack of a better word, of a Selectman Donovan, who had indicated that his desire was that Mr. Durrani run his business in a neighborly fashion and accede to the needs and the wants of the neighborhood. I would submit to you tonight that Mr. Durrani has done all of those things while he continues to be on the premises, usually no less than 7 days a week, overseeing everything that happens. He has seen to it that the lights were dimmed, that there were buffers put around the lights themselves so that they would shine more down than out, if you will. He's policed very carefully the opening and closing of his car wash to make sure it did not open early nor close late. He has made sure that there are no deliveries outside of the usual business hours of gasoline to the tanks that he maintains. I would point out that he's very, very competitive with other gas stations in the neighborhood, keeping his prices most reasonable at this time when everything seems to be getting very unreasonable, if you will. And again, he has heeded well the warnings and the suggestions of the board. As a result of that, he finds that extending his hours of operation would be very helpful to him, very advantageous indeed. And while he has tried to maintain the excellence that you, through your warnings and requests, had made, he feels that he has acceded to those demands and those warnings, and therefore is worthy of the consideration for the extension of the hours that we seek this evening. He would be in a far better position than I to explain perhaps some of the things that he would like to do, the extension of the hours, whatever the board might see fit to do. I note that there are other filling stations within the town of Abington that enjoy a 24-hour-a-day license and permit to operate. And I would also indicate that his little grocery that he has there for convenience and so forth would stay open if the board sees fit and run commensurate with his filling station. The car wash business would not open any earlier than was permitted in the beginning, would close no later than was permitted in the beginning. And I would ask Mr. Durrani just to speak to the board briefly and just let you know where he stands on the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Zahid Durrani. I'm running the Citgo gas station at 115 Brockton Avenue. Due to all those restrictions, I lost quite a bit business and the money too. So I especially ask you to extend the hours, especially in the morning. And I'm trying my best and doing my best to keep noise down, light down, and keep operation down. Thank you.
I'll just note one thing. I probably should have said this beforehand. It's not technically a licensing decision. It's basically a public discussion because we've had issues in the past, so it's not really a licensing decision, so to speak. So, but Kevin?
If I could, Attorney Whiting, in one of the issues, I think you mentioned that there were other gas stations in a similar operation in the town that enjoy 24-hour coverage, and I think I would like to probably get an idea on how many of them we actually have and the proximity to your location. I understand completely what your request is, and I think, in order to be fair to everyone involved, it'd be better to get a broad spectrum of, okay, who in like circumstances has it, and are you, in fact, in an unfair advantage? Do you happen to, I apologize, I should have asked this beforehand, but do you have any information like that with you?
My understanding, viewing myself, the mobile station at Howard's Corner, I believe, is open around the clock. And then at the Baptist Church corner of 58 and 139, they advertise that they're open 24/7. They are some distance, I think everyone would realize, from Mr. Durrani's station up in the Abington Center, if you will.
Right. And I think that the question really becomes is that when we're looking at the minutes today, in fact, I was the one that made the motion back in February, where we in fact conditioned the underground license, which under Chapter 148 would then run with the land. So I guess the question becomes, from a technical standpoint, whether we would need a public hearing, an advertised public hearing on that. And I think along with that request, the question then becomes, in my mind, is if we had the building inspector give us a report, in terms of other businesses that are in a similar situation. Now, am I reading this wrong, or? We conditioned, as I recall, the underground license back in February. Is that correct?
I believe the conditions were placed on the,
Was it on the license?
on the gas station. Yeah, because they were brought before you initially upon a complaint.
Okay, so the question, so it was conditioned, the gas station was conditioned. Is it your application to pump gas 24 hours?
Primarily, yes.
Okay. Well, let me say this about that. I think, at least from my perspective, I would like to maybe have the opportunity to have a comparison, if we could, from the building inspector to get an idea on what other stations in town may have, enjoyed that right. And I guess, then, if that being the case, and if it was truly conditioned on the license itself, then perhaps we may need an advertised public hearing if we're going to change that condition. No?
My understanding is that it is not a condition on the underground storage tank license. It is the conditions are put on under the bylaw, which provides the selectmen the opportunity to set reasonable restrictions in response to abutters' complaints for businesses, even that are zoned and working appropriately within the zone. So this is a response to the bylaw at the time, the general bylaw, responding to complaints. There's no restriction on the underground storage tank license that puts conditions of hours. That's not what happened in 2012.
I tend to disagree, Rick, only because just as far as the minutes reflect, it was agreed to place restrictions on the license as follows. Gas station to be open Monday through Sunday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Car wash to be opened Sunday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Motion by Donovan to approve the license with the restrictions that must be adhered to. So it sounds, at least in the minutes, it reflects that the restrictions were part of the license that was granted.
And I don't disagree with you. I'm in a unique position to say.
I know.
Yeah, you weren't here.
Well, and I don't recall specifically, but I'm just going by what the
Right,
minutes reflect. So.
I think we want to differentiate between licensing with underground storage tank and the
Right.
licensing, and I want to be careful with that terminology, licensing of an operation, so.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think, obviously, we couldn't condition the underground license as it related to the car wash. And there was a lot of discussion with council on that very issue, because there was a question of that very nature, is what we could condition, what we couldn't. If we were looking solely at the underground license itself, then we would have to condition it solely to that issue. The question we had at that particular time was more on the operation of the car wash, if memory serves me. So then the question begs itself as to, with that said, the vote was actually, well, as Andy indicates, the minutes were to condition the license. And if we're going to change a condition of the license, I think we need advertised public hearing to do so. And therein is the confusion, I think, because when we did it, and it was very confusing at the time, in all fairness to everybody. In fairness to everybody involved, it was very confusing. And as you can see, I'm stuttering and stammering right now because I'm trying to remember exactly what we did. But because Chapter 148 is the fire prevention law, and we have certain authority under that to condition a license. The issue of the car wash, which was the central question before us at that point in time, would fall, as the town manager indicates, under the land use bylaw. How those two merge, I'm not 100% sure right now. And I think the question, if we were solely to do it under the land use bylaw, I would submit then, it would be just that. I don't know if we're conditioning the license itself, whether we need an advertised public hearing or not.
You're looking at me and it makes me a little nervous. If it's, I don't know that you're speaking for the whole board, Mr. Donovan, but if that's the case, certainly if this were handled by the board at a future date, we could get some of the information you would seek from the building department on.
Yeah.
And we could also straighten out that technicality in the meantime if that's what the board desires.
I think honestly, to be fair to everybody involved, including the abutters, before we get involved in the nitty-gritty of this, I think the question from a technical aspect, and believe me, I apologize, because it's nobody's fault. It was very confusing at the time, and I think if we're going to go forward, perhaps we need two things answered, at least. A question from council as to how to proceed because of what the issues were at the time. And then secondly, if we could get that information to the building inspector as to what his competitors are and what extra they enjoy that he doesn't, and so we can make an informed decision with that. And while that's being researched, if we need a public hearing, we can go ahead and advertise it, and that way everything is done, to button it up very nicely so there isn't any room for appeal, if you will.
Understood.
If that meets with your approval.
If the board wishes that will take place.
I don't know what
I think
everybody else.
I think that's the prudent course as far as I'm concerned.
So is that a motion?
Well, I think that what I would do is I would move that we ask council, in terms of the very complex procedure that was before us in February, exactly what our rights are in terms of, this particular request. Secondary to that we ask the building inspector for a inventory of other businesses in similar capacity and what their hours of operation are. And then if it is then required that a public hearing be held, that it legally advertised, notice to abutters and so forth. I don't think, in fairness to everybody concerned, if we're going to hear from the abutters, I think we should wait until we do it, in the manner in which it should be before us. I think if we were to start now, it's just going to confuse the issue even more, quite honestly. So at least it will for me. So I think that perhaps that would be the easiest way to go in my mind. That's my motion. Don't ask me to repeat it.
Dory's got it. I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. If the Board of Selectmen, as part of the licensing, doesn't have the ability to restrict hours of operation, does that imply that any business coming into town could open up 24 hours a day? That's where I'm kind of confused on,
Yeah, it does, actually. Stop and Shop is a perfect example. When Stop and Shop, if we don't license them, if they're in a business zone, and we don't have any licensing. I mean, I remember we going through this with Stop and Shop at that particular time. We wanted to condition it, and we had no authority to do so.
But is that something we should consider, whether it's this land use bylaw, to amend that to other towns restrict hours of operation based on their
Oh, I don't know.
bylaws?
I don't.
Yeah, a lot of towns have different zoning regulations which which require special permits for certain activities, and those special permits would either through a zoning board or a planning board would tend to be the permitting authority for those types of issues.
Yeah.
So that's how it might be handled in a lot of other communities. I think if you look at towns that have updated their zoning bylaws within the last decade or so, you'll probably see more of that. Because as Mr. Donovan pointed out, there is this gap in terms of permitting, unless it's a specific license that either the Selectmen or some other authority does provide. And your zoning bylaws don't specify hours of operation, which is hard to do on a across the board basis. It does leave that permitting gap.
Thank you.
Anything further? Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, we'll be back in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your understanding.
Not at all.
All right, public hearing. Let's see if I do this right. Public hearing is scheduled for 6:30 PM. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, August 5th at 6:30 on the application of Zahid Durrani A&D Gas Company, Inc.
No, that's the one we just did.
Oh,
Excellent.
oh, that's a copy of the, oh, I'm sorry. We'll hold a public hearing, same thing, at 6:35 on the application of Antoine Shaheen to transfer a commercial garage license and a Class 2 license from Solution Auto Sale to Antoine Shaheen, DBA Express Auto Repair and Sales, 190 North Ave. Do we have Mr. Shaheen or a representative up here? Microphone, please. Can you just give a brief description of what your plans are?
My name is Rich Little, and I'm presently the owner of that property. I'm really here with mixed emotions. This property was my dad's business. It was my dad's life. 38 years, from 1937 to 1996, every day he spent working was in Abington. First at Damon, then with his own business, and finally at this location at 190 North Avenue. Just to give you a brief history, quick history of the property. At one time, that was an ice cream factory located on that spot. Fred Sheehan owned it. It was Plymouth Rock Ice Cream, and that moved down to where Walsh Sheetrock is now and became Seal Test. And they put in a service station, a one single bay city service station with 2 pumps. And then the larger garage was added later, back in the 1950s. My dad and I purchased that in 1962. We put in an Atlantic station, which became Atlantic Richfield, which became Arco. And when BP bought Arco, they no longer had any Arco stations east of the Mississippi, so we became a Getty station. I got out of the gas business in 1989, and under the direction of the Abington Fire Department, the property was detanked. All the tanks were removed in 1989 by Knapp Associates of Bridgewater, and they were taken to Grant Iron and Steel in Reedville. At that time, my dad and I leased the property to Eric Burgess, who was there for 20 years. And he since has moved to Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, in a business that he and his brother have. In 2007, 2008, I had a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental assessment done by Goldman Environmental of Braintree. At that time, all contaminants were removed by Glen LaPointe and were shipped to Aggregate Industries in Stoughton, and we have all those reports. So the property is, as of 2008, had been brought up to complete standards. In 2011, I leased it out to the present tenant, who runs a repair and auto sales. At the time, the town of Abington sent the fire department, building inspector, electrical department, plumbing inspector to the premises for compliance to code, and at that time, permits were issued by the electrical department and by the plumbing inspector, and upgrades were done at that time to bring that particular site up to code. And that's about it. And here we are, and this probably is going to be the last time I'm going to appear before the board on this particular property. Tony Shahane is from Weymouth, and he's going to run a family business the same way that my dad and I had a family business. He has his nephew with him, and Charlie, could you stand up just so the board sees you? Charlie works presently down at Braintree Square Shell. If any of you have got Audis, he's the guy to see. He's an Audi expert, and we're here tonight to talk to you about transferring the commercial garage license and the commercial, the used car license, Class 2, to Mr. Shahane when he buys the building, and we expect that the closing is going to be on or about the September 14th, and that's the date that we would like to have the effective license transfer.
Rich, refresh my memory. We did something a short time ago at this place. Did you still retain ownership of the building at that point in time?
Yes.
You did, okay.
Yes.
And that person is no longer there?
They are there, but they're leaving.
They're leaving, okay.
They have another location in Rockland.
Okay.
Are the licenses in your name currently, the?
That's my understanding when we,
Actually, the license is in Solution Office.
right.
Which is Mr. Little's business, or is that?
Yeah, the
Okay.
person running the business today.
Anything else?
And is it conditioned on the actual sale of the property? Is that what you want?
Well, I'd like the license to be transferred on the, on or about the day that the property changes hands.
What, God forbid, if something happens and the property doesn't get transferred, what would happen in that case?
Then it would just stay the way it is.
So it would be
Subject to
subject
passing.
to the actual passing of the closing, right? The sale of the property, I guess it would be, yeah.
Any other discussion?
Just one other thing for the record. Based on your application, you're asking for 10 vehicles, 5 inside, 5 outside, for a total of, and another 14 for sale under the Class 2, would that be correct? Okay. Just so you understand, because we give this speech to everybody, when you have a license and it's restrictive just to the number of vehicles, it has to be maintained at the number of vehicles. So it can't go over, and if that happens, there'll be problems. But as long as you understand that, and we go through that with everybody, so.
Can I, one more? And this isn't increasing the number of cars, correct? It's just, everything else is staying the same, the hours are staying the same, and is currently existing?
So how many cars are we talking about?
Total of 24.
24.
24 total.
I'd make a motion to approve the transfer. Oh, it's public hearing, that's right, I'm sorry.
Okay, so nothing else from Selectmen. Anyone in the audience have anything to say? This public hearing? Nothing?
Okay,
Move we close the hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the hearing. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Move we approve the transfer of both licenses conditioned on the sale of the property from Mr. Little to Mr. Shahane.
Second.
Do you want to make, contingent upon passing final fire inspection? That's
Are there still inspections to be
the
done?
fire chief asked it.
Yeah,
final
okay.
inspection.
Contingent upon the final inspection with the fire department also.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, guys.
Okay.
Request for a one-day liquor license from the Abington Lions Club. I would like to note that I am a member of the Lions Club.
And so am I.
so is Mr. Burbine.
Well, then in that case, Mr. Chairman, I will move we invoke the rule of necessity.
Which means,
That means you can vote on it.
oh, okay, thank you.
Because with that said, there's only 2 of us left, and we can't make a decision.
So that's a motion? You have a
I'll make the
second?
motion.
Motion second.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, should I speak on this, or do you want to speak on it? The liquor license? Or Dory will probably speak on it.
The one-day liquor license. This is a one-day liquor license requested by the Lions Club, and we actually have a certificate of insurance, and it is also insured by the Bartending Service of New England, and they come with tip certified servers. So once the appointed tip certified servers are appointed to that function, they will provide us with a copy of the tips certified information.
Move we approve the one-day liquor license for Thursday, August 29th, in the name of the Abington Lions Club.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Is this a public hearing? For the pawn liquor?
No.
It's not a public hearing. Pawn shop used article license, ABC Tech Squad, 201 North Quincy Street. We could have, is it Bill DeSize? Bill, I think we met with you, did you come to the meeting? Okay. Can you just give a brief description of what you want to put down at North Quincy Street, please?
Basically, right now, I'm still, I'm open, and I have, I repair computers, repair cell phones, and I buy and resells tools, anything, you know, I can't buy and make a profit off it. And then I'm looking into, a lot of people come in about the pawn, so I'm looking into extend to that. And the inspector came in and told me, you know, I needed the pawn license in order to stay open, so I filed the application in.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? I think we discussed it before, and there was some concerns that we didn't have that much input from the police chief, if I remember correctly.
Well, he had gone out and done his, I don't think he had had time to go out and do
Yes,
his
he have.
inspection.
He-
Has he spoken to you, Mr. DeSize?
Yes, and he asked me to put a program, which I did, when someone walked in, to automatically scan the license, send it to that program, so in case something's stolen. So I did install the program in there.
The police chief is recommending some bylaws, but which we can look at further down the road, my thoughts are, but in the meantime.
Yeah, I think in absence of the fact that we don't have a bylaw, I think I would be in favor of the license, providing that it be conditioned on the 5 points that the chief is recommending, which in essence is what you would find in a bylaw. So from, and I'm sure with the issues that the chief went over with you, I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but
That's the only other thing, maybe should we involve town council a little bit, and look at these conditions to make sure that they're acceptable, or not strict enough, or too strict?
no. I think if, for the future, if we're looking, if we're gonna develop a bylaw for the future, I think that, town council can draft a bylaw in terms of what it would be required, but I think for your particular license, and it would be prudent to condition it with the requirements that are set forth.
Tom?
Yeah, my only question, I guess, to the board or Kevin, would be if those bylaws were approved at town meeting, would those automatically apply to granting this license? So I guess my question is, do we need to do anything that they would automatically, apply?
I don't know, but the first question that come to mind would they be grandfathered?
Yeah.
Because the license was issued prior to the adoption of the bylaw. So that would be the first question I would have.
My understanding is that grandfathering is applicable to zoning bylaws and not necessarily the general bylaws of the town. So if it was done under a general bylaw pawnbroker's license, I don't think grandfathering status would would matter. It's also the case, keep in mind that this is a regular renewable license by the Board of Selectmen, so at any time during that license is active, the board can set reasonable restrictions. So if there was a bylaw put in place that had different restrictions than what are on this license, you could amend, and they're not consistent with it, you could amend that later on too. So again, it's a little different than zoning. Zoning grandfathering is different.
Bill, has the chief gone over these 5 points with you, these 5 conditions with you?
Yes.
And you're okay with those?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I don't have, as long as
Yeah.
you're okay with it,
Yeah.
the chief, then, but I think we should work towards maybe adopting or preparing a bylaw, and then we don't have to.
I would move we approve the pawnbroker's license as submitted with the 5 conditioned on the 5 recommendations by the police chief.
And also conditioning upon the final inspection of the building inspector.
Correct.
Motion made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded by Tom. Any further
I
discussion?
don't want to arm wrestle or anything, I mean.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck with it.
Good luck.
Good luck. Okay. Are you going to start your own TV show up there, or?
Action discussion items. Number 1, approval of minutes. These are, some of these selectmen's meetings that happened several years ago, long before I even thought about becoming a selectman. Mr. Burbine appears to be the only one that's on a couple of these. Did he want to make a motion to approve? And has he had a chance to read some of them?
I've read them all.
November 9th, December 11th,
Clear as a bell.
March 7th, all right.
4 years ago, no problem.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the November 9th, 2009 Board of Selectmen meeting.
Do you want to just hop right down there, January 11th?
January
February
11th,
22nd, March 7th.
2010
You want to hurry?
minutes. And that was me too, February 22nd, 2010 minutes. And the March 7th, 2011 minutes. And the December, oh, Ken, you were involved in this one, so.
We're on a roll.
December 19th, 2011 minutes. The March 12th, 2012 minutes. And that was the regular session, and the March 12th, 2012 executive session minutes.
Are there any issues pressing in the executive that we want to hold those? Did you mention there may be something, just be on the safe side, hold over?
Recommend not to be released until all.
We'll hold off on those, and that won't be part of my motion at this point, then, okay. December 17th, 2012 minutes. There's an executive session there also that we can hold off on. April 16th, 2013, and July 1st, 2013. Make a motion to approve all those minutes.
Second.
Did you guys actually read them? Motion made and seconded.
Do
Any
our
further
homework.
discussion?
Which one's this on?
Everything except for the
Except
executive
for the 2
session.
executive sessions.
So this is December 12th or December 17th, 2012?
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing that I would point out, and again, there was some discussion there at that time about granting an employee an extra week's vacation. And I think and I think certainly board members support incentives to people for work above and beyond. But I just would,
Is that an executive session, or?
No, that was
no,
part
this
of
is in
that was part of the regular.
December 17th, week before Christmas. But the only thing I would like to point out is I would want to make sure that that extra week's vacation was memorialized outside our personnel bylaws, on a go-forward basis. Because if you read it, it's on page 2, the middle of the page. The town manager at that point in time said the vacation was a one-time deal and it wouldn't be carried over from year to year.
But
I mean-
that's just reflective of what was said at the meeting.
Yeah, but I'm just, highlighting that.
Yeah.
That, where we have a new town manager and
Okay.
things change or whatever. I'm not asking to change it, it's just,
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve a boatload of minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And we have two sets of executive session meetings, March 12, 2012 and December 17, 2012. Any action from the board?
I would just recommend that if you accept them, they'll will not be released at this time anyway.
That would be my motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Revoke special municipal employee status. Since I have the microphone first, I would like the board to hold that until we have a full board, if that's agreeable to the other board members. But it's fine.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
Tom.
that's fine with me, but I would just like clarification as far as the policy. It specifically says what we approved was elected and appointed officials, but I believe it applies to employees of the town. So, as we come back to this, I would just like a clarification that any employee that is requesting this, they need to request it in writing, otherwise, you know, it may be likely to be
Employees
rescinded.
automatically?
I don't
They have to
believe so.
request it too? Do we send out a letter asking them if they wanted employees?
Sent out letters to everybody that had received the status back in November and December, which was the policy.
So, which included some of the employees.
Some of them.
Yeah.
Some, yeah.
But if an employee who doesn't have it now wants it, they'd have to request it. Right?
Yeah.
Next item, action discussion, reappointment of representative to Old Colony Elder Services Board of Directors. Mr. LaFawn, do you want to talk about this at all?
You have one applicant as a reappointment, obviously, you usually do. Our COA director is willing to serve in that role again, if you should choose to appoint her. If not, we're happy to advertise for another delegate.
I would move we appoint Suzanne DeJustburg as the Abington representative to the Old Colony Elder Services.
Have a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Town manager report.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, I provided you with a general update memo, and I'm not going to read it, but I am going to just point out a couple quick items from that. First, in my intent to get familiar with a lot of the issues facing the town, I'm meeting with the town's engineer on August 15th at the landfill. As you know, that's the capping that facility is an issue. Some of the Board of Health members have expressed an interest in attending, and if any member of the board wishes to attend, that's 9:30 on August 15th. Second, as the Memorial Arch project moves forward, there is a notice of intent hearing with the Conservation Commission on August 13th, and that should be the last hurdle in getting out a complete procurement on getting that project moving forward. And you can read more of the details, but I will just point out that I'm sure all of you know Mr. Doug Ulwick, who's really done a tremendous amount of work to help pull this together, so I want to thank him. Moving down a bit, regarding Griffin's Dairy, smaller issue facing that particular area. I do have some informal quotes on demolition, removal of those buildings. I know that may be an issue for the board. Because of the peculiarities of municipal government, prevailing wages, et cetera, I want to go a bit further to make sure that those cost estimates are realistic, as we may want to include it in our capital plan for next year. I know that's a larger discussion among the board as we move forward. Moving on, moving down to number 7 on my list, I attended a meeting of the Board of Directors of the Tri-Town Development on July 29th. As I pointed out, and some of you are aware already, some of you have also read some press reports, that there is a potential attempt to change the master plan. Primarily, it would, from my view, the major issue is going to be a different configuration regarding residential commercial development. But the larger issue may remain, as far as Abington is concerned, is trying to ensure that we have a say in what happens up there and any revisions that do occur. There is another meeting where Starwood is intending to present an updated proposal, which I believe is in October. And I think most of you have, you've all received notice of that also. I'm going to be meeting coming up this week with some representatives of Whitman and Hanson to discuss the feasibility of a regional veterans district. I have been clear with members of the board that I've discussed this with that I am a little skeptical that there really is some significant savings available, but I do think it's worth checking out. The state is very clear on the staffing requirements of a veterans district, just as they are in terms of their staffing for, communities of certain population. So it's not just a matter of can we share an agent, it's can we put in place an agent and an appropriate staff to meet the requirements of the state, and will that save any money? And is it worth any potential service deficit that we may see? So I'll keep you informed on that. I'm certainly keeping our interim veterans agent, Bob Pratt, involved also. And finally, I just wanted to report that I've continued to meet with boards and committees. It's been a little bit difficult over the summer, but at some point, most of the boards have met now, and I've been able to have discussions with all of them, and as well as a lot of individual officials who are a little more aren't in town hall every day. So, and I want to thank people for making themselves available to me. I did in particular, have a chance to have a nice long meeting with the chairman of the Finance Committee to get an idea of how we can work together effectively, and so we have clear expectations of each other. So, and you can read the rest of the report at your leisure as you drift off to bed this evening. So,
Public comment.
Is there a question that we can ask on town manager's report? No?
well, I think in the charter that has to.
We're over, we're 10 minutes over the allotted time.
I think that has.
What do you, I'm sorry, what do you
I think that has to be in writing, Mr. Dion.
What do you got,
Well,
Tom?
first of all, I would just like to compliment you, because I think the level of communication here is outstanding, to, having advanced some of the topics that you want to discuss. So I do commend you. I think that is very good. And the only other question is under 5. I would like to get a better sense of what we might be looking at a structural deficit to
Right.
handle some of the collective bargainings. Are we talking 1,000, 10,000, 100,000? So I know you and your team would be working on that.
And I think if perhaps at our next meeting, we can schedule an executive session to discuss that.
Yeah.
Obviously, and no offense to the public, but I want to be cautious about what I put in what could be a public document, that's all. So I think it would be a little premature, but we can plan on having that discussion if the board wishes an executive session at our next meeting.
Thank you.
As far as the landfill, Rick, is it Rick, Steve Wright, who was in here about 8 months ago, 6, 7 months ago? We had talked to him about coming back in 6 or 7 months to the board to give us an update, so maybe you can mention that to him.
I will.
See if he's available maybe in the next couple of meetings, just so he can come back in and give us an update.
That it?
I'll move we adjourn. How's that?
No second?
When's the next meeting?
September 9th.
Thank you.
Motion is made, seconded by Andy. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.